All right, so have you ever thought about reading The Little Prince? Like, maybe you loved it as a kid,
Oh, yeah.
or maybe it's just always been on your list.
Mm-hmm.
You know, one of those books you know you should read.
Yeah,
But with a classic like this,
right.
it's easy to wonder, right?
Yeah, is it really worth my time?
Is it really worth my time as an adult?
Especially as an adult. Yeah.
That's what we're here to figure out today.
Awesome.
We're going to cut through all the hype,
Love it.
give you everything you need to decide if The Little Prince is for you.
Sounds good.
So,
Let me tell you right off the bat, it absolutely is.
okay.
The Little Prince is one of those books that can hit you differently at different stages of life.
Okay.
But even if you read it as a child, revisiting it as an adult can be an entirely new experience.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Good.
But I'll admit I'm a little skeptical.
Okay.
What is it about this book that's so powerful for grown-ups?
Well,
What am I going to get out of it that I
Yeah.
didn't as a kid?
think about the way that Saint-Exupéry writes. He uses this deceptively simple, almost childlike style,
Okay.
but it's full of symbolism and layers of meaning that often go right over kids' heads.
Great. Yeah, okay.
It's like that famous drawing of the elephant inside a boa constrictor.
Oh, yeah.
Adults just see a hat,
Yeah.
but there's this whole other level of meaning hidden beneath the surface.
So you're saying it's all a trick?
Well, not a trick,
Okay.
but there's more there than meets the eye.
Right. I remember that.
Yeah,
So it's not just a charming story. There's actual depth to it.
absolutely.
I guess I always thought of it as a kid's book.
It is charming, absolutely.
Yeah.
But it's also a sharp critique of the adult world
Okay.
and the things we tend to prioritize as adults.
What?
Saint-Exupéry uses the Little Prince's encounters with these different characters, the king, the vain man, the businessman,
Right.
to expose the absurdity of our obsession with what he calls matters of consequence.
Matters of consequence.
Yeah.
That phrase keeps coming up. What exactly does it mean in the context of the book?
It's basically anything we focus on that distracts us from what truly matters in life.
Okay.
The king, for example, is obsessed with power and control,
Mm,
even though he rules over nothing.
right.
The businessman spends all his time counting stars, believing he owns them,
Okay.
but missing their beauty.
So it's like today's hustle culture. Always striving for more, never stopping to appreciate what we have.
It's a really good analogy.
I see. So the book is actually saying something about modern life, even though it was written decades ago.
Absolutely. It's timeless in that way.
Wow.
And I think that's why it continues to resonate with readers today.
Yeah.
It holds up a mirror to our own lives
Mhm.
and asks us to consider what we're chasing after.
Okay, that's making more sense.
Yeah.
But what about those other big themes everyone talks about, like loneliness and connection?
Right.
How do those play out in the book?
Well, the relationship between the Little Prince and the fox is key here. The fox teaches the Little Prince about the importance of taming.
Taming.
Yeah. Which really means creating bonds and forming meaningful connections. It's about investing time and effort in the things and people that matter to us.
But isn't that what the little prince does with his rose?
Right.
He cares for her, tends to her,
Exactly.
and then he leaves her behind.
Yeah.
That always seemed kind of harsh to me.
It's true. There's heartbreak there.
Yeah.
And that's part of what makes the story so powerful.
Okay.
The Little Prince learns that true connection comes with risk, with the possibility of loss and pain, but it's still worth it.
Okay.
In fact, it's the time he spends with his rose, the care he gives her, that makes her so special to him.
I'm starting to see why this book is considered a classic.
Yeah.
It's not just a simple children's tale, is it?
Not at all. It's a layered, nuanced exploration of the human experience.
Wow.
It's about love, loss, responsibility, the search for meaning.
Right.
It touches on so many universal themes.
Okay, so it's profound. It's timeless.
Hmm.
But is it enjoyable?
Well,
I mean, some people find The Little Prince a bit too sentimental or preachy.
sure.
Do you think that's a valid concern?
I understand that concern, but I wouldn't say it's preachy.
Okay.
It's more about prompting us to reflect on our own lives,
Okay.
on our priorities, and what truly brings us joy.
Okay.
And I think what makes it work is the writing itself.
Mm.
It's poetic, lyrical, almost like a fable.
You know, it's interesting you mentioned fables.
Yeah.
It reminds me of other books that use simple storytelling to convey deeper meaning,
Right?
like The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho or Jonathan Livingston's Seagull by Richard Bach.
Those are great comparisons. Like
Yeah.
the Alchemist, The Little Prince is about a journey both literal and metaphorical.
Right.
And like Jonathan Livingston's Seagull, it encourages us to reach beyond our perceived limitations, to strive for something more.
I could even see a bit of the giving tree in there.
Oh, yeah.
That same bittersweet quality of love and sacrifice?
Absolutely. And I think those comparisons are helpful because they show that The Little Prince is part of a larger conversation about the human condition.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground here,
We have.
but I'm still curious to hear more about the writing itself.
Okay.
What makes Saint-Exupéry's style so unique?
Right.
And what are some of the key takeaways that readers should be looking for?
Well, that's a perfect segue into the next part of our deep dive.
Okay.
We'll explore the intricacies of Saint-Exupéry's style, examine those memorable quotes, and unpack the lasting impact this book has had on readers around the world.
Awesome. I can't wait.
Stay tuned.
Welcome back to our deep dive into The Little Prince.
Yeah.
Before we went off on that tangent about other books,
Yeah.
you were about to tell me more about Saint-Exupéry's writing style.
Right.
What makes it so special?
It's deceptively simple, which is part of its brilliance.
Okay.
He uses these short, almost poetic sentences, but they're packed with meaning. And he weaves in these beautiful metaphors and images
Okay.
that stay with you long after you've finished reading.
So I'm picturing something like poetry, but for people who don't like poetry.
Exactly. It's accessible even to reluctant readers.
Okay.
But it's the kind of writing that rewards careful attention.
Right.
The more you reread it, the more you discover.
Okay.
Like those layers of meaning we talked about earlier, the symbolism,
Right.
the critiques of the adult world.
Okay.
It's all there in the language.
Can you give me an example?
Sure.
Like, what's a line that really stuck with you?
Well, there's the classic, what is essential is invisible to the eyes.
Mm.
It's so simple, yet so profound.
Okay.
It reminds us that the most important things in life,
Yeah.
love, friendship, connection,
Okay.
can't be measured or quantified.
I've heard that one before.
Yeah.
But I never really thought about it in that context.
Yeah.
It's like he's saying we need to look beyond the surface, beyond those matters of consequence to find what truly matters.
Precisely. And then there's another line that always gets me.
Okay.
It is the time you have wasted for your rose that makes your rose so important.
Wow.
It speaks to the idea that it's our investment, our care, our love that gives something value.
That one really hits home.
Yeah.
I'm starting to see why people say this book can be emotionally wrecking.
It's true. It can sneak up on you like that.
Yeah.
But it's not all sadness and heartbreak.
Okay.
There's a lot of humor in there, too.
Right.
Especially in the way Saint-Exupéry satirizes the adult world. Remember the drunkard who drinks to forget that he's ashamed of drinking?
Yeah, yeah.
It's funny, but it also makes you think.
It's like he's pointing out the absurdity of our own behavior.
Yeah.
How we get trapped in these cycles of self-destruction.
Exactly. And I think that's what makes the book so powerful.
Yeah.
It's not just telling a story.
Right.
It's making us question our own assumptions and priorities. It's asking us to look at the world with fresh eyes.
Right.
Like the Little Prince does.
You know, it's interesting. You mentioned earlier that Saint-Exupéry was a pilot during wartime.
Right.
I wonder how his own experiences influenced the book.
Oh, absolutely. His time in the desert, the isolation, the danger.
Yeah.
It all seeps into the story.
Wow.
Think about the setting itself. The vast, empty desert where the pilot is stranded.
Right.
It's a metaphor for the feeling of being lost and alone. Something Saint-Exupéry knew all too well.
So the book isn't just a whimsical fairy tale.
Right.
It's rooted in real experience in the harsh realities of life.
Right. And I think that's what gives it its depth and resonance.
Yeah.
It's a story about hope and connection in the face of adversity.
Yeah.
About finding meaning even in the most difficult circumstances.
Well, we've talked about the writing, the themes, the author's life. But there's one thing I'm still wondering.
Okay.
I've heard some people say that The Little Prince is too simplistic or that it talks down to adults.
I get that.
What do you say to that?
I understand that critique, but I think it misses the point. The Little Prince is simple on the surface, yes.
Okay.
But that simplicity is intentional.
Okay.
It's a way of getting to the heart of the matter,
Right.
of stripping away all the complexities and distractions of adult life to reveal what truly matters.
So it's not about dumbing things down. It's about getting to the essence of things.
Exactly. And I think that's what makes it so enduring.
Yeah.
It speaks to something fundamental in all of us,
Okay.
regardless of age or background.
That makes sense. But let's be honest.
Right.
There are a lot of books out there that try to do the same thing.
Yeah.
Explore universal themes, offer life lessons, etc.
Yeah.
What makes The Little Prince stand out from the crowd?
Right.
Why has it become such a global phenomenon?
That's a great question, and one we'll tackle in our final segment.
Okay.
We'll dive into the book's lasting legacy, why it continues to resonate with readers generations after its publication, and ultimately why we believe it's worth your time.
All right. Sounds
Don't
dope.
go anywhere.
Okay, and we are back for the final part of our deep dive into The Little Prince.
Yes.
You know, we've talked about the writing,
Right.
the symbolism, even Saint-Exupéry's own life.
Yeah.
But I'm still curious.
Yeah.
What makes this book so special?
Right.
Why has it resonated with so many people for so long?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
I think part of it is the book's universality.
Okay.
You know, it speaks to these core human experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Love, loss, loneliness, the search for meaning.
Right.
In a way that transcends cultural boundaries.
Okay.
I mean, there's a reason it's been translated into over 300 languages.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
It's not tied to a specific time or place.
Right.
It's about the human condition itself.
Exactly. And the other thing is,
Yeah.
it's a book that can be read on multiple levels.
Right.
As a child, you might be captivated by the adventure, the whimsical characters.
Mm-hmm.
But as an adult, those deeper layers of meaning really hit home.
It's like it grows with you.
Yeah.
You can revisit it at different points in your life
Yeah.
and get something new out of it each time.
Absolutely. And I think that's why it's become such a touchstone for so many people.
Yeah.
It's a book that stays with you.
Right.
Those images, those quotes that stick in your mind.
Yeah.
And they continue to resonate long after you've closed the book.
Speaking of quotes,
Yeah.
you mentioned earlier that some of them really stuck with you.
Right.
Could you share a few more?
Of course.
Okay.
One that I find particularly powerful is, "It is only with the heart that one can see rightly. What is essential is invisible to the eye."
Mm-hmm.
It's a reminder that we need to look beyond the superficial, beyond the material world, to find what truly matters.
I love that one.
Yeah.
It ties back to the idea of matters of consequence that we were talking about earlier.
Right.
It's so easy to get caught up in the things that seem important,
Yeah.
work, money, status.
Right.
But ultimately, those things won't bring us true happiness.
Yeah. Exactly. And another quote that I think is relevant to our modern world is,
Okay.
"Grown-ups love figures. When you tell them you have made a new friend, they never ask you any questions about essential matters. They never say to you, what does his voice sound like? What games does he love best? Does he collect butterflies? Instead, they demand, how old is he? How many brothers has he? How much does he weigh? How much money does his father make? Only from these figures do they think they have learned anything about him."
Wow, that's a bit of a mouthful.
It is.
But it's so true.
Yeah.
We're obsessed with quantifying everything,
Right.
reducing people and experiences to numbers.
And in doing so, we miss the essence of what makes life meaningful. We lose sight of the things that can't be measured.
Right.
Beauty, connection, love.
It's like the book is a wake-up call,
Yeah.
reminding us to pay attention to the things that truly matter.
Exactly. And I think that's why it continues to be so relevant today,
Yeah.
even though it was written decades ago. It speaks to something timeless about the human experience.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
If someone is on the fence about reading The Little Prince, what would you say to convince them?
I'd say give it a chance.
Okay.
It's a short book.
Yeah.
You can read it in an afternoon.
No.
But it has the power to stay with you for a lifetime.
Wow.
It's a reminder to slow down, to appreciate the simple things, to cultivate meaningful connections. And who knows?
Yeah.
It might just change your perspective on life.
Beautifully said. I'm definitely going to reread it with fresh eyes now.
I think you should.
And for our listeners, if you're looking for a book that will make you feel and maybe even shed a tear or two, The Little Prince is definitely worth your time.
It's a journey you won't regret taking.
And on that note, we'll wrap up our deep dive into The Little Prince.
Okay.
We hope you enjoyed this exploration,
Yes.
and we'll be back soon with another fascinating topic.
Sounds good.
Until then, happy reading.